Welcome to today's episode of Simply Honest, the show where we give you an honest yet simple first impression of the latest games with a little bit of gameplay sprinkled in. I am your host, Nico Silverado, and today we are tackling South of Midnight. Having personally heard nothing about this game, I jumped into it with next to no expectations, let alone any understanding of what the gameplay style would have been, and to be quite simply, as a too long didn't read, I was beyond surprised as this game gave me such a genuine good experience. This has allowed me to have a lot of fun moments leading up to this very review, and I cannot wait to talk to you guys about this game and why I think this should be your next game on your next playlist. The story South of Midnight takes place as we play a young woman by the name of Hazel who is living peacefully with her mother over in a trailer park while they are getting ready to deal with an upcoming major tropical storm. During a major flood and the storm becoming a lot worse than they anticipated, dangers suddenly arise and Hazel does everything that she can to try to save her mom as their house is taken away by a deadly flood. And during this situation, Hazel eventually finds herself given powers to become something known as a weaver, which allows her to interact with spirits, infesting the land, allowing souls to be put to rest. But she eventually uses her powers to try her best to save her mom and to save the spirits who are not able to rest. Now, some of the initial first impressions I had with this overall game is that South of Midnight is a extremely story-rich style game. With this game having a lot of action-packed situations involved to the combat, I believe the majority of the focus of this game is its overall story in terms of the lore, the voice lines, and overall the very rich and beautifully constructed backgrounds that exist in this game. South of Midnight overall is a very linear story, which allows you to have the ability to roam around looking for various things like Easter eggs, clues, but overall it's a very linear story that allows you to find a lot of really fun things like the combat, and the unique boss battles are something that I thought was a very interesting but a very welcoming surprise within the gameplay when I was trying and reviewing this game. For the overall intro, I could feel that one of the things that impressed me the most about this game was the genuine degree of relatability in regards to Hazel and her overall character. During the intro, you would find her having a large variety of voice lines that gave her a lot of emphasis on her age, her maturity as a person during that time in the story, and whenever certain things would happen into the realms of the story, her voice lines felt reasonable and, for lack of better words, normal. For example, during sections of the story where she would see as lightning strikes would show up and out of nowhere massive explosions, she would actually show signs of visible fear and her voice lines would reflect that, versus what I would find in other games where the main character would suddenly be given these powers and suddenly nothing can faze them, nothing can make them afraid of what's happening. This made Hazel for me a very well-designed and very relatable character as I was going throughout the realms of the story. And with me having played this game on the Xbox Series X, I felt that the graphics, the frame rate, and overall the feel of the game itself was very enjoyable, and I was very happy that the quality of the game was not given a lesser value because I was on a different type of console. When you look at everything from the overall visual aesthetics of this game, visually, this game is amazing. The overall effects were reasonably balanced with not too many usage of particle effects, while also maintaining a very unique and very apparent art style that was throughout the entirety of the game. And even all the character designs from the mythical creatures, the monsters, everything was very visually unique, and I thought it was a really fun way to see a new style of art in regards to a new type of monster that we had to fight during the course of this game. Overall, when it comes to the quality that we would expect for current modern day games to have in 2025, I felt that South of Midnight was a fantastic addition for this year, and I believe it did an amazing job in regards to making the expectations and the graphic quality being on par with what I think would have been required for a game made today, as this game was beautiful. It was amazing. And another thing that personally has always been a big thing for myself in terms of the artistic value of a game is the overall variety and the visual aesthetics of the levels themselves. Every major chapter and act had a really fun, unique style of the levels in regards to the bayou swamps, the city region, and even things like the Shadow Realm during some of the major parkour and running chapters. Overall, each level had a very wide variety of uniqueness about it, and it made sense as everything throughout the game itself was very well made and was very tied into the current place and pace of the narrative. The story was overall a very heavily progressing style story that allowed me to personally have a lot of connection, and it was a very deep and multi-level story that had a lot of things not only involving Hazel, but involving a lot of the various NPCs that we get to interact with throughout the story. And for me, this is something that I always adore and enjoy when it comes to narrative heavy games, is the overall desire for me as the player to really want to interact and learn the positives, the negatives, and basically the lore of every individual character. And I think that for the most part, throughout the entirety of this game, South of Midnight did an amazing job giving a lot of closure to a lot of major stories that allowed us to really have a lot of interest, and for me, I loved everything about it. And even the overall interactions during the various cutscenes with the NPCs gave a fun sense of myself wanting to have a better understanding about some of the various backstories, and each character had just really impactful and a very wide variety of backstories, including some of the backstories being a lot more dark and in cases a lot more adult versus, you know, more of a whimsical kind of cheery backstory. I felt that the constant variety of the positive and negatives of every character really gave a sense of richness as I got through the overall game itself. Now, one of the things I will say, and for those who are looking at this game wondering if it's challenging, is it difficult? Yes, but also no. As a person who's a very big fan of Dark Souls games and has played through various high-level roguelikes, I would say that South of Midnight is not necessarily very challenging, but it is definitely not the game that you could probably go completely brain dead in when it comes to the overall gameplay. The overall challenge and the difficulty slider was a very helpful thing, as I feel like South of Midnight is a game that would really allow you to have a accessibility for any player of any level and style to play and still thoroughly enjoy the combat, the story, and just the narrative that was provided by the developers. And although this game has really fun, fast-paced combat, I think one of the biggest things that I really enjoyed in terms of the general difficulty in combat were the puzzles in regards to the theme of the chapter, but also the overall boss battles themselves, as each of the boss battles were very visually interesting, and the mechanics to take them on were really fun, and I thought it presented a decent challenge without making me overly frustrated about the difficulty of the game. Now, when I went and finished this game overall entirely, I had to ask myself the major question of where do I see the potential future, and of course the potential replay value of this game itself. In terms of replay value, in my personal opinion, South of Midnight does not really offer too much replay value, as everything is kind of one decision, one choice. But also, if you want to upgrade the difficulty, I could see that being a reason to play it again. But after only having played it once, but overall through the entirety of the game, I felt that South of Midnight had a very positive and a very entertaining one and done experience, as I felt the story was well made, I felt it was entertaining, and I would highly recommend this to anybody, especially for people in my friend group who may not be the most hardcore super gamer. I think that the way that the story has been created is that for the price that it was offered and created on release, it had a very worthwhile entertainment. And at the time of this video, this was also free on Xbox Game Pass, which personally gave me a great enjoyment as I was able to play a very fantastic game with a very wonderful platform that gave me access to it. Now, some of my current final thoughts in regards to South of Midnight itself is that, once again, as a standalone game, I would highly recommend this game for anyone who's a big fan of stories and a big fan of heavy narratives with having a little bit of combat sprinkled in. It's a great time. For those of you who are looking for a high combat, high difficulty, I would suggest checking out some of the potential challenges like the difficulty slider, and maybe presenting yourself with personal challenges if you're really looking for something to make it more difficult. In my opinion, although this is not the most challenging game in terms of combat difficulty, I believe the action is still very plentiful, and there's a lot of really fun things that you can do within the game that allowed it to be very fun and fantastic. For me, the biggest selling point of this game was the overall beautiful, well-rendered story. The ending gave me a great sense of closure in regards to a lot of my personal questions, and overall, for the price of the game, I felt South of Midnight was amazing, and I think anyone who watches this review would genuinely enjoy it. If you guys happen to have played this game and have checked out this review, let me know down in the comments section how you felt the game was for yourself. Did you enjoy the story, the combat? I would love to hear your opinions. And of course, guys, we'll be doing additional videos involving South of Midnight, as well as additional gameplays on our Twitch. There will be links in the description for all of those. But as always, though, thank you for joining with me on this fantastic review of a fantastic game. I have been your host, Nico Silverado. And as always, we'll catch you guys all on the next video. Adios, sayonara, and bye-bye.